seems like such a small thing to skip. A patch of grass, a quiet backyard, a weekend chore that never quite makes it to the top of the list. But beneath the surface of every lawn, something is happening that most people never think about. And if it's ignored for long enough, the consequences can be more serious than anyone expects. So what really happens if a lawn is never aerated? To understand the answer, it helps to look at what's happening underground, where the real story begins. Every time feet walk across a lawn, every time a mower rolls over it, every time children play or furniture sits in one place for too long, the soil beneath is being pressed down, just slightly, again and again. Over months and years, that gentle, repeated pressure adds up. The soil particles get pushed closer together. The tiny pockets of air that used to sit between them start to disappear. And what was once loose, breathable earth slowly turns into something dense and closed. At first, nothing about this looks alarming. The grass is still green. The yard still looks like a yard. If someone walked past, they'd have no reason to suspect that anything was wrong at all. It would be easy to think, it's just a little compacted soil. What could possibly come from that? But underground, the grass is already struggling. Grass roots need three things to survive: air, water, and nutrients. In healthy, loose soil, all three move freely. Air fills the gaps between particles. Water drains down toward the roots, and nutrients dissolve and travel where they're needed. But in compacted soil, those gaps close up. The roots can no longer breathe properly. Water and nutrients that should be sinking downward instead struggle to get through at all. The plant is technically still alive, but it's living on less and less. That's when the first signs begin to show. Puddles that used to disappear within an hour start lingering on the surface for most of the day. The water isn't being absorbed the way it should be. It's simply sitting there with nowhere to go. Patches of grass that once had a rich green color begin to look dull, then yellowish, thinning out in places where nobody remembers changing anything. The roots, deprived of what they need, grow shorter and weaker. A healthy lawn has deep, strong roots reaching down into the earth, anchoring the grass and pulling up moisture from below even during dry spells. But a lawn growing in compacted soil can't do that. Its roots stay shallow, clinging close to the surface, which means the grass becomes far more sensitive to heat, to dry weather, to anything that puts it under stress. And it's not just the areas where people play sports or where cars are occasionally parked. Even in ordinary backyards, the places that get walked over the most, the path to the mailbox, the spot by the door, the shortcut across the corner of the yard, tend to compact the fastest. These are the areas where the problem usually shows up first, long before. The rest of the lawn follows. As the grass grows weaker, something else starts to change. The balance of power in the yard begins to shift. A strong, dense, deeply rooted lawn works almost like a shield. It crowds out weeds simply by taking up space, leaving little room and little light for anything else to grow. But a weakened lawn, thinned out and struggling, no longer holds that same defense. Gaps begin to appear between blades of grass, and weeds, which are often far more tolerant of poor soil conditions than grasses, start finding their way into those gaps. Dandelions, clover, crabgrass, opportunistic plants that thrive exactly where the grass has given up ground. At the same time, a weakened lawn becomes more vulnerable to disease. Fungal issues and lawn diseases often take hold most easily in grass that's already under stress, grass whose roots are shallow and whose overall health has been quietly declining for a long time. What might have been a minor issue in a healthy lawn can spread more easily and take longer to recover from in one that's already struggling to survive. And then there's the water problem, which only gets worse with time. Every time it rains, or every time the sprinklers turn on, the same pattern repeats. Instead of soaking down toward the roots where it's needed, the water meets that dense, compacted layer and simply can't get through fast enough. Some of it runs off, carrying valuable topsoil and nutrients away with it. Some of it just sits on the surface, evaporating slowly, doing the grass no good at all. Less and less water actually reaches the roots, even during a storm that looks, on the surface, like it should have been more than enough. This is usually the point where people start to wonder, could the lawn actually die from this? The truth is, there isn't one single answer. It depends on the type of grass. It depends on the climate, how hot the summers get, how dry the soil becomes, how much rain falls naturally throughout the year. It depends on how the lawn is cared for otherwise. Whether it's watered consistently, whether it's mowed at the right height, whether fertilizer is used to try to compensate for what the soil can no longer provide on its own. Some lawns can survive years of compaction, limping along in a weakened, patchy state without ever fully collapsing. Others, especially in harsher climates or under heavier daily use, decline much faster until what used to be a full, green lawn becomes something closer to bare, dirt with scattered clumps of surviving grass. What almost never happens is a quick recovery on its own. Compacted soil doesn't loosen itself back up. Without some kind of intervention, the same cycle just continues, year after year, the compaction deepening, the grass weakening a little more each season, the weeds gaining a little more ground, the water running off a little faster than the year before. This is where aeration comes in, though it's worth being honest about what it can and can't do. Aeration isn't a magic fix. It won't undo years of compaction in a single afternoon, and it won't instantly transform a struggling lawn into a perfect one. What it does is far more practical than that. Aeration involves creating small channels through that dense, compacted layer of soil, allowing air, water, and nutrients to reach the roots again. It gives the grass room to breathe. It gives water somewhere to go besides the surface. It gives roots the opportunity to grow deeper again, instead of staying trapped near the top. For a lawn that's been aerated regularly, this process happens quietly, before compaction ever becomes a serious issue. The soil stays loose enough for roots to keep doing their job, and most of the problems described here simply never develop in the first place. But for a lawn that's gone years without it, especially one that gets heavy daily use, the story looks very different. The quality of that lawn can decline steadily and significantly over time, not because of anything dramatic, but simply because the ground beneath it never had the chance to breathe. And that, in the end, might be the most important thing to understand about a lawn that looks tired, thin, or patchy, despite everyone's best efforts. Sometimes the problem isn't the grass at all. Sometimes the real story is happening several inches beneath it, in soil that's been quietly pressed tighter and tighter year after year, until it simply can't give the roots what they need anymore. The grass above the ground is only ever telling half the story. The other half is buried, unseen, and easy to forget, right up until the day the lawn can't hide it anymore.